Views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond. Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, the DRC conflict. How should the countries in the Great Lakes region respond to it? The security concerns within the Great Lakes are back on the agenda as the region comes to terms with the latest wave of civil war that has engulfed the Democratic Republic of Congo. The M23 rebels, led by renegade General Bosco Ntaganda, recently stepped up their raids, capturing Bunagana, the main town near the DRC-Ugandan border, before launching an offensive on Goma, which is bigger. As a result, 600 government soldiers fled to Uganda. Yesterday, Uganda, which currently chairs the International Conference on the Great Lakes region, called an emergency meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which has resolved to create a neutral international force to disable the rebels. Speculation is rife that both Uganda and Rwanda could be directly connected to the ongoing conflict, but both countries have rejected such reports. The DRC has remained unstable since its independence and due to its dense vegetation and huge landmass. It has also become a haven for rogue elements including Ugandan and Rwandan rebel groups. Many people say that the causes of the current conflict could be linked to minerals. But regional experts also point to the political challenges that have manifested themselves in the region, plus internal weaknesses in the DRC. Experts on regional affairs and other key bodies, including the disbanded Great Lakes Parliamentary Forum, have in the past warned of growing conflict across the region. They say that there is now an urgent need to examine those factors and move fast to curtail a deeper crisis. So tonight we look at the DRC conflict to try and understand what needs to be done to stop it and what challenges could emerge if it is ignored. Our guests tonight, Honorable Christopher Chibanzanga, former MP Busongora South. You're most welcome, Honorable Chibanzanga.
Thank you. Good evening, dear listeners.
We're also joined by Ambassador Harold Acemah, consultant on international affairs, also a former veteran Ugandan diplomat. You're most welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you. Good evening.
Well, both of you come incidentally from the Congo border, I believe.
Yes.
Talk to us, Ambassador Acemah. What ails the Congo?
Thank you, Edmond. I think the number of factors which have contributed to this tragedy of Congo. The Congo became independent on June the 30th, 1960. So this year, Congo is 52 years old. And Congo was had a false start. The first Prime Minister, Patrice Lumumba, one of my heroes in Africa, it started well, but the colonial power, which had a disliking for him, I think they, together with other Western countries, feared that he was either communist or leaning too much to the left that time during the Cold War, ensured his removal within a year of becoming Prime Minister, and in fact was assassinated, I believe, in 1961, which plunged Congo into a civil war which lasted until about 1965, when Mobutu Sese Seko emerged as the leader. In fact, Mobutu was initially an assistant to Lumumba during the negotiation for independence. So the Congo didn't start well. The foundation of the state was weak, undermined by internal factors, but also especially by the colonial power. And since then, Congo has had ups and downs. The only period which was stable was maybe from 65, when Mobutu emerged as the leader, up to mid-80s. And unfortunately, Mobutu ruled with an iron hand. He ruled Congo like Leopold I. There's a one-man show, and this if there's any lesson African countries should learn from Congo, it is that dictatorship eventually is a disaster. And so since independence, Congo has not really enjoyed political stability. Now what's happening now Unfortunately, it's like history repeating itself. This is what happened in 1998. Remember when Mobutu, the Kabila Senior, launched what started like a small rebellion again in the eastern part of Congo, more or less the same area, and eventually spread like wildfire and dislodged Mobutu. Now, I hope that this is not a repeat of what happened in 1998. There are people who have already actually said so. But as a neighboring country of Congo, and whatever happens, it will affect us. Already there are many thousands of refugees fleeing to Uganda. And secondly, the government of Uganda believes in good neighborliness. And I think we have an obligation to assist the government, the people of Congo, to ensure that there is stability in the country. So really, it is the fact as historical and also, political.
We'll examine those deeper. Of course, there are questions. If there is there discontent countrywide in the DRC, and over what? We'll discuss that. Whether it's possible for this to become like a powder keg that's lights of different lights in different explosion points in different parts of the country. We'll talk about that at some stage. We'll also look at the strength of this party. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio, and tonight the DRC conflict. How should the countries in the Great Lakes region respond to it? Our guest tonight, Honorable Christopher Chivanzanga, MP, former MP Busongora South, Ambassador Harold Acemah, veteran diplomat. He is retired now, and he's a consultant right now on international affairs. We've just been joined by Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, but also editor of the Contemporary Africa Review magazine. You're most welcome, Mr. Kintu Nyago.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you, Edmond.
Viewers, because we're also on the internet. Honorable Chivanzanga, what is the Congo's problem, briefly, in your reading?
Well. Congo has several problems. They are not in isolation from the problems of the intercontinent. But for Congo, really, it has somehow tripled. The biggest problem that Congo is suffering from is the lack of leadership. Congo has never had a leadership. What Congo has had since the days of Leopold are businessmen in the seats of authority and power. Leopold was not bothered about providing social services, about giving the people of Congo leadership. What he did was to keep Congo as a business entity. And the trend has continued up to today. The leadership in Congo, be it at a province level, be it at a territoire, be it even at a migration, they are not doing government work. They are not offering leadership. Everyone collects money into his own pocket. And you put up a good house, you don't have a road, you don't have security, your neighbor does not have a hospital, and that's it. So the biggest problem really is neglect. Without running the risk of attacking a neighboring country on these microphones. After all, I'm more Congolese than in Uganda.
Yeah. We have a minister who came from Congo, so don't worry about it. Well, I won't say it on air as well. But he's confessed himself.
So, when we are talking about the issues of Congo, I think we first remove that so-called border, that boundary called is just a small stream of a river. And because it is there, it has divided our people, and it is in our mentality, the moment we cross there, we think we're in a different world. But it remains Africa, it remains the people of Africa, it remains Bandande Bakonzo along that border. So, the biggest question is the leadership. People who are there, they are just businessmen in the seats of authority. We have them all over Africa, but at each other they have some sense of shame. But in Congo, nothing. The second problem is economic neglect. You go to Congo, there is no road. From Lubiriha to Butembo, it is 170 kilometers. It will take you 2 days of traveling, even when you have a 4-wheel drive. You see, neglect. Because there is no government, everyone is doing business. The second problem of Congo, ethnicity. The country has never been brought together as a country called the Congo or called the Zaire. Nobody did not even attempt. Nobody did not know that there is Eastern Congo. In fact, Mobutu visited Uganda more than he visited Eastern Congo for his how many years?
He had a palace in Badolite, which is...
in the forest, and he would fly by a helicopter, drop himself there, and the helicopter goes back to Kinshasa. No road at all. What he minded about is the mansion in the middle of the forest.
A palace.
The palace.
Mabo Palace.
That is the situation in Congo. Ethnicity, almost 400 and something communities. They live as communities. There's nothing called nationalism in Congo. There is what we call ethnicity. They have nationalism with an ethnic leaning.
Okay.
And that's why, right now, they are killing each other.
They don't have a sense of oneness as a nation. All right.
Another problem is exploitation, resources in Congo. Every person who goes to Congo to help, he's not helping the country, he's not helping the people, but he's exploiting the natural resources. Including the in fact, these criminals called in Uganda, they are wanted. I'm using a harsh language. Thought you're my best Ugandan community. In fact, they are wanted by ICC. By ICC.
Yes, International
Criminal Court.
Yes.
But for sure, UN troops are just watching them, causing mayhem to the people. And the agenda they are taking is ethnicity. Right. We must protect ourselves. Okay. How many people are you protecting? The Nyamurenge in the Nyamurenge mountain, around 600 people. Another problem our government around
600 million, 2 million people, 600,000.
60,000 people.
60,000.
60,000 people. The Nyamurenge of the Tutsi leaning in Congo.
Go on.
Only?
I'm telling you.
The figures that point at 2 million. Well, but let's go on.
Because they wanted a justification to end there. Another problem is
who?
And in fact, if there is a legitimate interest in the Congo, it should be by us.
All right.
The Bakonzo.
Okay.
Along with that border.
All right.
Another problem is these governments around Congo. They think they can play all of their games within the Congo and they look smart. But nobody has ever played his games in Congo and get out clean.
All right. We'll examine those deeper. First, before we come to Mr. Nyago, Honorable Ambassador Acemah, can this Congo problem be cured very briefly? It's a big, broad issue, but give us some snapshots on that.
It can be solved.
It can.
Yes. You see, Lumumba, I wish he had had more time. You see, Lumumba's slogan was one Congo, one Congo, one Congo. That's what Lumumba kept emphasizing. And obviously, the people didn't like what Lumumba was advocating. In fact, Lumumba's close advisor was Nkrumah. Lumumba was a radical fellow. He was impatient. You see, if you know the colonial history of Congo, Congo went through one of the worst colonial experiences. In fact, Leopold, what do you want to mention? Leopold first, he ruled Congo as a private state. In fact, it was called Congo Free State. It had one of the worst human rights violations. Even the European colonial powers were embarrassed by what Leopold did. So when he died, they said, no, this country must not be run by the Belgians as a country. But before that, it was run as a personal estate of King Leopold I. But the problem can be resolved. You see, Congo has enormous resources. Congo is even intellectuals. I've met many Congolese intellectuals in America and Canada. In my field, political science, they are some of the best. There's a guy called Njogolo. He's written some of the best books.
Wamba.
Yes, Wamba, exactly. You know, so Congo has got people, but many of them have not given up. Say, this is a lost cause.
So how do they do it from here? For what can they do it? How can they do it? What can they do?
I think the region should help Congo. You see, Congo is in a dire straits.
Right.
We have an obligation as Congo's neighbors, eternal neighbors.
Yes.
Like my brother here. My own ethnic group is divided by the border. 1/3 of my ethnic group is in Congo. We speak the same language. You will find somebody called Acemah in Congo. So we have the same. We have a lot of people.
Right.
And if we are committed to African Union,
yes,
this is a challenge we must address collectively.
All right, Mr. Kintu, what is Uganda's position on the situation in the Congo at the moment?
I think it's good neighborliness, I would imagine, because Uganda has no interest to invade Congo or to of conflict in Congo. Uganda is a peaceful neighbor. What Uganda would want is good relations, trade, and possibly the integration of Congo into the Greater East Africa with time.
Some people think the country is too large, it should be split.
No, I don't think so, because if Congo, that split can't be peaceful.
It cannot be peaceful.
I would imagine not. So it would, I mean, from what we're seeing now. So those who are wishing for it splitting, it may cause more problems for the region. I mean, it might cause more instability. But Congo is one of Uganda's biggest trading partners. Possibly up to $200 million of goods and services exported to Congo by Uganda. So Uganda needs a peaceful Congo. And Uganda is engaging in all forums, including the AU, to try to ensure that there is peace in Congo.
Well, incidentally, at the AU today, on the sidelines of an African Union summit, it was decided that the regional states should create a neutral international force to neutralize the rebels. Is that something that can work, Ambassador Acemah?
You see, there's a tendency in Africa for always to go for the military solution. You see, the problem in Congo is essentially political. I think, personally, I would recommend we should try to focus on a political solution using diplomatic means. I think if sufficient pressure is made to bear on these various factions fighting, they can come together at the round table. It happens in Sudan after so many years of fighting. SPLA was able to sit with Khartoum and negotiate a peaceful settlement. It has happened elsewhere. There are many examples one can cite.
Right.
I think the problem is fundamentally political. It's not a military problem.
Right.
You're not going to solve it by shooting guns.
Okay. Let's look at the profile of these rebels. Who are the M23? Do we have information, adequate information on that?
When as I told you, that Congo has a problem of ethnicity. As they were fighting Mobutu, these ethnic groups came up. And Mobutu was fought not so much by the Congolese, but it was much of external forces behind the few Congolese who wanted to overthrow Mobutu. And so many communities crossed. And the neighboring countries got an opportunity to use their relationship with some communities inside Congo to overthrow Mobutu. And when Mobutu was overthrown, there was no mechanism to bring these communities together. And thereafter, Congo almost became a failed state. Right now, if Africa is to help Congo really, I don't know what we must do. We must neutralize the fighting groups within Congo.
Well,
for instance, if you take Eastern Congo, there is the Mai Mai, there is the Bankelema, there is the ADF, there is the Nalu, there is now this M23. The leaders of those groups have been declared criminals.
Switch it off.
Now, even the methods, the mechanism that the ambassador is proposing has got problems.
The diplomacy.
Yes. Are we going to have the whole of African Union to discuss dialogue with the people who recruited the children, who are raping women, who are killing innocent people? If there is a whole of a village called the Kanyabayonga, it was cleared. In fact, in Congo, there is a silent genocide going on. That the world does not even want to talk about it. The international world has only described the Congo as a rape capital, Eastern Congo actually, as a rape capital of Africa. And they are not bothered.
So, I mean, in relation to the communique I've just referred to of the AU, I think, true, we can't solve all problems through the military, but bearing in mind the scenario that Honorable Chibazanga has just depicted of Eastern DRC, not just where there is fighting, but much of the Eastern DRC being lawless, more so in that region. I think Chivu, is it called South Chivu? Southern Chivu, where the M23 and others, the only way you can pacify that is by having some kind of military action, as has been suggested. But the longer-term solution has to be political. But immediately, to stop the rapes you're talking about, to stop the genocide you're talking about, to stop the mayhem going on, there has to be some military action. And I think that is what informs the AU position of creating a regional force to intervene and pacify that region.
Ambassador Acemah, what could happen going forward?
Well, you see, the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region, which Uganda is chairing, met in Addis, I believe, yesterday to discuss this issue. And the conference is not a new event. It has been there for a while. I think the mechanism does exist. In fact, the OAU, the African Union, normally would defer to regional arrangements to try to resolve this matter. Congo is a member of SADC.
The South African Development Corporation.
Yes, in fact, remember you recall in the war in 1998.
Yes,
the SADC countries came to support Kabila, Senior. You know, it was a big war, a disastrous war. I hope that
as a rebel at the time.
I hope that sort of situation does not repeat itself.
Yes,
I believe.
Well, foreign countries support a rebel.
Yes, I believe that both AU and UN jointly. I think UN needs to be involved in this matter as well, because UN has got a bigger capacity. And the Security Council, which has all the big countries as permanent members, should take an interest in what's happening in Congo. You see, Congo is a source of many precious minerals in the world.
Yes.
And if there was a total breakdown of law and order in Congo, it will affect a lot of things in the region. Yes. Even the world.
Right.
You know, so really it is coltan, exactly. Congo produces, I think, 70%
of the world's coltan. Some information before we do this point.
Very briefly.
The biggest problem in Congo are those minerals.
Yes.
For how long have we had the presence of UN in Uganda? Almost 12 years. But you know what is happening? Arms are supplied through UN. As UN is flying out, I don't know whether it is a policy of the entire UN or it is the officials working with.
So the UN does not help.
They fly with minerals. Right. In fact, right now, the contingent of UN which is in Congo, it would be at its disadvantage if Congo became stable. But right now they enjoy the confusion, and that's how they do business.
Mr. For the break.
Yes, I want to clarify something on the SADC intervention the ambassador has mentioned here. The SADC intervention was not to support a rebel, because Mr. Joseph Kabila was the head of state of Congo. Well, the manner in which we went to power, that's a different matter, but he was the recognized head of state. Yeah. So SADC intervened to support a sitting head of state.
Member state.
Yes.
All right. Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, the situation in the DRC, the DRC conflict, how should the countries in the Great Lakes region respond to it? We're going for a break. We'll be back.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Abaganda abazuri abanyangola abateso muzilama zinatweyaganenga tujagusa myaka 5 bedunga tetuli baddu so unbelievable nayatenga byaddala tekibadde ise yadde nakamo bendera wagguluggula katuli beautiful yero wakasana kafenga kasufu ready brotherhood eyatero wetugatta tuchakale with Airtel today and celebrate 50 years of independence. Get up to 100% bonus to call across all networks. That's not all. Stand a chance to win a motorbike daily and a car every week. Simply top up every day. Get up to 100% bonus. Dial *162#. Press yes or OK. Start the 50 years independence celebration of Uganda today with Tuchakale from Airtel.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal. opened his own garage and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. So many people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends see the potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to one like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste for the sauce. Nile Special.
You've earned it. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, the DRC conflict. How should countries in the Great Lakes region respond to it? Our guest tonight, Honorable Christopher Chibanzanga, former MP for Busongora South in southwestern Uganda. Ambassador Harold Acemah, consultant on international affairs and a former Ugandan diplomat, and Mr. Kintu Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, also editor of the Contemporary Africa Review magazine. You will be able to contribute to this discussion by calling in. I'll read out the numbers when that time comes. Honorable Chibanzanga, some people think two foreign countries have invaded the Congo. Is there substance in that claim?
Not only two. Not only two. So many interests in that confusion. You can find that when you are focusing at the two countries, they are just proxy forces of other bigger forces in the world. And my question, I keep on asking myself, if the neighboring countries of Congo have got the capacity to sort out the security problems of Congo, why can't these countries help the Congolese to build their own capacity internally to sort out their problems? But it goes back to, if Congo is stable, we don't have illegal business going on. We don't have profit making.
Yes.
So they have kept that Congo into confusion so that they continue doing business. I saw it 10 years ago. All of those countries we wanted to appeal to, Manya the SADC, Manya East Africa, Manya the neighboring countries, including the UN, they went in specifically to do business. And that's how they have left Congo as it was during Mobutu's times.
All right.
But the solution is within Congo. The Congolese themselves to build the capacity to sort out their mess. That's how Uganda did it.
Actually, Uganda has no interest with an unstable Congo. And our relationship with Congo is symbiotic, in the sense that both Uganda and Congo are supposed to gain from the relationship. It's not parasitic but symbiotic.
Yes.
And after the war with the SADC country that has been mentioned, Uganda has been committed to the Lusaka Accord and whatever protocols that emerge from that situation. Now look, even as I speak now, apart from the social, cultural relations with the Congolese people, Mr. Ambassador has mentioned himself that many of these people are Yukakwa? No, for sure, they may look bad as in Congo. There are many Kakwas, but also Honorable Chibazanga, the Bakonjo, and so on.
More on the other side.
Even Banyoro, there are many Banyoros in Congo.
Yes. Across the lake.
Oh yes.
The oil lake.
Oh yes. So now Kawalega could even have been born from Bulega in Congo. Bulega means Congo in Runyoro. Wow. So now that said, at least Kawalega's mother came from Bulega, yes, which is Congo. Now that said, but we have also very strong economic, not in terms of extracting and looting that kind of
trade,
but trade, because Congo, legitimate trade, because Congo is one of our biggest markets of our services and goods. We are not that industrialized, but in the region we are.
We sell ganja.
No. Even water, even beer. Mukwano is doing out of whatever. The Moranas are doing this business, roofing and so forth. All those, and then Chukubo. Many of the people who come through buses that go to the places has been mentioning, Butevo and so forth. They are from here, Chukubo. Yeah. The reason that's why Chukubo closed at midnight is because of the regional trade. Uganda, we are a hub, and because of that, people are making money. So we Uganda as a country, as a state, and Ugandans as a people have no interest in an unstable Congo, because our relationship is symbiotic, and we would like a stable Congo where Congolese have got the means to trade with us.
So when there is insecurity, refugees cross across the
definitely
border.
Affects us. And also, for example, let's take oil. The only way we can even make more money in that oil is by extracting or exploring the oil on our side, but also the utilizing of the oil in the Congo, which is possibly equal or if not more than Uganda's. It can be, for example, refined on the Ugandan side.
True.
So that creates a hub, because we are better organized, and then for sure this oil cannot be taken by a pipeline to Kinshasa, which is say 2,000 miles away.
It's easier. You might as well take it to Mombasa. It's closer.
Much more closer, because Kinshasa is much more further off than Mombasa.
Absolutely.
And the only refinery that can be built will have to be built in Uganda in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So we have an interest in the stability of Congo. For our own, for both of us.
All right. Ambassador, why did President Kagame come here? What do you think he discussed with President Museveni?
Well, my brother here should know better.
Could speak
you see, the United Nations has issued a report which implicates Rwanda. They have denied it, And as one who has worked with the United Nations, you see, UN rarely would mention a member state in such a manner unless they are sure of their facts. And I really hope that Rwanda is not involved in what is happening. And because it's not in the interest of Rwanda or Uganda after what we went through in the 1990s. I think
the RPF crossed the border.
I think
are you talking about the situation where the RPF crossed the border?
No. When
the country.
Yes, when we were supporting
1998,
when we were supporting one faction and the SADC were supporting another.
Yes,
I think all of us in the region must help Congo to stabilize. And I agree with them. You see, we have that symbiotic or mutual relationship between Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, and of course, naturally, those in this African community. And so, although Congo is a member of SADC, Congo is our neighbor, and hopefully we will soon have South Sudan a member of this African community. We can have a special relationship between this African community and the Congo. I've flown, I don't know whether you've flown to Kinshasa from Entebbe.
I haven't.
I've flown to Kinshasa.
I'm told about vast forests.
The Ituri forest. In fact, you fly like for 1 hour over the forest.
That's about 600 kilometers.
It's bigger than Uganda. And it's a major ecosystem for the world. Not just for Africa. You see, the Congo Basin and the Amazon Basin, these are the two biggest natural forest reserves in the world.
The Amazon in South America.
Yes, in Brazil. So Congo's problems can be resolved, but we must play a part. The international community must play a part. People cannot just continue to see the Congo as a source of minerals and put nothing back.
Right.
And a lot of this insecurity is historical. It is a continuation of what Congo started on a false.
You mentioned that already.
Yes. So exactly. So this is.
Of course, you've spoken about the mineral, but you've said nothing about timber. Such a forest will have a lot of timber.
Oh yes.
You said nothing about the capacity of the Congo River. Congo give about 40,000 megawatts of electricity.
Inga Dam, it produces over 1,000 megawatts. I think now they're increasing capacity about 3,000.
But the whole river will give 40,000.
10,000. I think it's 10,000.
The whole river has the capacity to give 40,000.
For example, you see,
Uganda's capacity is 5,000 megawatts.
You see, Congo River is shorter than the Nile, but it carries more water. There's a bigger volume of water than the Nile.
My biggest
this international force, what is it going to do? What is it going to change?
My biggest problem is, why is Congo neglected by its brothers? Rwanda nearly became a failed state. A sister country stepped in, stabilized the country. Southern Sudan was a failed state.
Yes.
A sister country stepped in and stabilized it.
Where are we going now?
Somalia
Almost.
We know the driving forces within the region, which is in Somalia.
So what should we do?
And you give Somalia the next 3 years. These are Shabab are joking. Why is Congo is neglected? We saw these brothers, these big brothers in the region, going to Congo during Mobutu, during Kabila. But they raped the country like Leopold did. So why is Congo getting a different treatment from the regional government?
It is.
You work in Entebbe, talk to us.
No. Also, as somebody, as a Ugandan who really has been following these issues. Look, the examples Honorable Chibazanga is giving, most of them, like for example Sudan or Rwanda, there was also an internal dynamic. For example, the RPF was an organized force, political military force.
Now we have the M23.
I don't know about those ragtags criminals, but I mean, let's talk about the RPF.
Yes.
These were credible. I mean, it could have been controversial, credible, but there was an internal dynamic.
Right. Building base.
Yes, that's important. And then the SPLA was not a creation of the
neighbors.
For example, the Ugandan state.
Are you sure?
It wasn't for sure.
55, I think.
No, the SPLA began in 83, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean, the struggle was emancipation in southern Sudan took much of Anyanya and so forth. But John Garang, there was a meeting in Juba, and John Garang began the SPLA.
Absolutely.
Colonel John Garang. Please, let me finish.
Where was he retreating? Where was it?
True, but the point is, those were Sudanese. And not just a base, but even the social that's important.
As if we have never had the Congolese.
So now, Congo is much more complex, very huge to begin with.
Yes.
And the internal, that internal organization, in terms of political organization. For example, let's take the Mzee Kabila. Mzee Kabila didn't have that organization. In part, that's the major problem. And then secondly, within no time he was in power, without building the capacity. I think Uganda's argument had been that there was need to build internal cohesion, internal capacity.
Dynamics, conviction.
And I think there's a man called Sasu, somebody who died along during that struggle. Some Congolese politician who was killed by in a mysterious circumstance. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's important to have people who organize themselves, and you can only support, and that has been lacking in the Congo.
Well, listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. The DRC conflict, how should countries in the Great Lakes region respond to it?
Or something like that.
That's the one.
All right. Yes. Let's hear from you. From Addis Ababa, the African countries have agreed that neighboring countries create a neutral international force. Actually, they did not name the composition of this force, what it would be like. You can call now. Our number is 0414-348-111-0312-260-390. 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. And what? Good evening, your name?
Stephen calling from Munguja.
Stephen, yes?
I think that
Spectrum, hello? Yes, Honorable Reverend.
just like that. issue of saying that Jamaica is not.
Okay, thank you very much, indeed, Honorable. Yes, we recognize the voice. Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
Hello?
We can hear you, your name?
My name is Gordon Riondo.
Mr. Riondo, could you switch off your radio, please?
Okay, I'm back from it now.
Go on. That's a strong statement. We'll look at that. We'll examine that. Spectrum, hello?
That's a definition.
Yes, sir, your name? Yes, Baka. Yes, sir. Get a mask on. Spectrum, hello? Yes?
Good evening.
Good evening, your name?
Jimmy, I just need this call. I was juggling sessions that I called the rescue. But I want to tell you one thing.
Spectrum, hello? Okay, let's talk about cars right now. Honorable Chiwanzanga.
Yes, sir.
Well, Riondo said, okay, one final caller. Spectrum, hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, your name? Yes, Honorable. You want to talk about cars? Honorable Chiwanzanga.
Yes, sir.
Could this be repeated? You said this could be repeated here. State versus fiefdom. Do you have a fiefdom here?
Although I'm not an NRM person, I don't wish that we get into a situation of Congo after NRM.
Do you have the dynamics?
Of course, after a strong leader who ruled single-handedly a country, if you are not careful, he goes down with the country. That's why some of us who have been saying, Musei, you have contributed enough. The experience tells us that you pass the baton to someone else and sit in the background and see whether he will carry on your vision and the values for the last 27 years. We are yearning for that. But I don't wish that situation. And I want to think that Uganda right now at least has created some institutions. I don't think after Museveni, no matter how he goes, UPDF will just crumble like that and start acting like Al-Shabaab. I would be most surprised.
Like my mind.
Like my mind. And these educated officers start rapping because Museveni is not there. I will be the most surprised. Then you go to the police. That if Museveni is not there, then this police led by a lawyer, my friend
From the LSC, I believe.
They will start forming themselves into one like this.
He was educating Makere.
I don't think so. And I don't wish for that situation to happen here. Because Uganda should remain.
But you said we don't have the dynamics. That's the most important part. You don't wish for it to happen, but we do have the dynamics. Your answer is?
I mentioned one. A strong leader who leads the country single-handedly. and he does not want to pass the baton. And if he goes down with a country.
We have someone who works closely with him, Mr.
We should not confuse staying in power long with being a vice. Because look, the question is, how long has he been in power? For example, Mr. Ambassador Acemah was in North America for a long time. There's a man called Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was in power for 4 terms and he died literally on the Oval Office, on his desk.
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't mean that it's a vice. It's a crime for him to do that, because there's a consensus in America that to access and retain power, you need the vote. So much of this has been, Mr. Museveni has been in power because of the mandate of the people since the 1995 Constitution, and that it's not true that Mr. Museveni has been ruling single-handedly. No, he's a very consultative leader. I mean, there's Parliament. Mr. Kibanzaga was a very vocal member of Parliament.
Let's not go there.
Mr. Kibanzaga was a very vocal member of Parliament. There are local governments and so forth. There's a press and so forth. Now, as to whether a strong leader, when the strong leader goes, a country collapses, that's not true. There are even strong leaders who have ruled in contexts where there is not a liberal democracy.
Let him give me one country in Africa.
Chairman Mao Zedong. He died, China never collapsed, or Stalin himself, when he died,
give me one in Africa.
Soviet Union didn't collapse. But in Africa, we have also had strong leaders who have ruled for long and left, and the countries have thrived. Say Botswana, for example, or Tanzania as another example, amongst others. Or NASA.
Ambassador Acemah, is Kabila repeating the same mistake as Stephen was saying? The same mistake as his predecessor.
Yeah. Yes, let me just add something to what Kintu has just said.
He used to wear a leopard skin hat, that man. Go on.
You see, in the case of Roosevelt, in fact, the Americans introduced the 2-term limit precisely because Roosevelt overstayed. The tradition has been 2 terms. It's not in the law, but now they wrote it in the law that you must have only 2 terms, Kabila, you see, I think one of the problems in Congo, really, there's a challenge of leadership. I think Kabila has been a weak leader. Kabila is not even accepted. In Kinshasa, they treat him like he's a foreigner. Kabila's mother is Tutsi Rwandese.
Right.
Burundian, I think.
Burundian, and Kabila grew up in East Africa.
Tanzania and Uganda.
Yes. In fact, Kabila is just learned English. French rather.
He's a very young man. He took part before he was 30.
Yes. Kabila has tried his best, but certainly it's been the challenge, I think, has been beyond what he can manage. And secondly, many of the potentially capable good leader for Congo have lost interest. There are men in Brussels. When I was in Brussels, you go to an area called Matonge in Brussels. It's just like a suburb of Kinshasa. Highly educated people teaching universities, but they have no interest in what's happening in the country, which is very sad. That's why I give credit to Ugandans in the diaspora. They have interest in what's happening in this country.
$2 billion.
They do more than that. They're interested in the politics of Uganda. Many of them are contributing. Yes, and they follow events Uganda on the internet. Many Congolese don't bother. They're busy with their music, with their drinking, and So this is a challenge for the Congolese in diaspora. There are many, and they are well educated, and they should really be involved in the affairs of their country.
What's going to happen in the next couple weeks and months?
Well, let's hope this war does not escalate. There is the if Goma falls, there is a danger we might see what happened in 1998 happening again. If Goma falls, then you know that there is a big agenda than what we're seeing now.
Honorable Chibanzanga, what is going to likely to happen?
What is going to happen?
Yes.
What is going to happen?
Yes.
Kinshasa will be overthrown.
By this rebel.
I am telling you. When you see the rebels, the way they are conducting themselves, although we are saying they are criminals, and when you see 600 soldiers of government
running away
in another country, and they are bundled on lorries to go back to their country through another border.
It is serious.
Oh my God. If the UN does not stand up and they say, Tanganda come here, Manya the other one will come here, you are wanted, go to ICC. Campo take charge. It's no longer Campo. Who's this one?
The lady.
That lady take charge. Kinshasa is going to crumble like a powder cake because the countries that are behind these the Ugandas, they know how to do it better.
We have to go. Thank you very much, the Honorable Christopher Chibanzanga, former MP, Busongora South, from the border with the Congo. Thank you very much for coming, Spectrum. Honorable Ambassador Harold Acemah, consultant on international affairs, also former Ugandan diplomat, who was there for about around 30 years. Thank you very much for coming, Spectrum.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chitu, Nyago, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the President, also editor of the Contemporary African Review magazine. Thank you for coming to Spectrum.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. The Spectrum will return. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next, though, is the news in English.